We're here today at the third and final event in our Genomics Policy Roundtable Series. Over the last couple of months, over the 3 roundtable sessions, we've brought together more than 120 people. We've had patients, clinicians, researchers, industry partners and government, both state and federal, reflecting on and talking about how we can make access to genomic-led care a reality for people with cancer, particularly those with rare, less common and complex cancers. We will be sharing a report of what we've discussed, and we look forward to sharing that with you all soon. Throughout the series, we've been asking people to reflect on why genomics are so important for people with rare cancers and how we can bring about the access and the equity that they so desperately need. We've also asked them why events like this are important and how coming together to discuss these areas of policy can really bring about change.
Charlotte, thanks for sharing your experience today. Based on your experience with genetic testing and how it influenced your treatment, what would you like to see for other patients who are diagnosed with GIST or other rare cancers?
I would really like to see everybody be able to have genetic testing like I had done myself, regardless of your financial position. I'm very fortunate that I was able to pay for it, and my second testing was paid for by a government scheme. But everybody should be able to have access because it's vital in their survival that you have the correct medication from what the testing shows.
Thank you. And why do you think discussions like one we're having today is so important?
Well, for me, it's amazing to see how many people are working towards the testing, and to see that there's people that that support you in what you're going through. I didn't realize all this was going on behind the scenes, so it's just incredible. It's incredible to see, and we need to have people speaking for us, medical professionals who can help make sure that we all get the same treatment.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. It's really great to be here today amongst all these really smart people talking about these amazing activities and projects that are happening right across genomics and cancer care. I think there's a really bright future that can be based on some really solid research and clinical activities that have been going on. So I think the future is bright for what we can achieve in the space.
Hi, it's just so fantastic to be here and participating in what is such a fantastic roundtable. There is so much energy in the room as we talk about genomics and precision medicine. We've been talking about it for a long time. And I think what's really important is we want to see equity of access. We also want to see, following the recommendations, a report from the HTA coming out yesterday. I think now is the time and the energy in the sector to come together and talk about genomics and a way forward.
As you know, Cancer Australia is developing a national framework for genomics in cancer control. It's a really important piece of work because we need to enable equity of access to both genetic testing and genomic testing and genomic-informed treatments for all Australians. This is really critical because it really is the future of cancer care, and we need to make sure that we have equity in outcomes and personalised cancer care for all Australians.
What would you like to see for the future of genomic-led cancer care?
So I guess what's the most exciting thing about the really rapidly evolving technology is the potential and real opportunity for all Australian cancer patients to have access to comprehensive genomic profiling and for them to really identify targets that could mean personalised medicine that could really improve quality of life and length of life for Australian patients.
Amazing, thank you. And why do you think events like today are important?
I think they're absolutely critical to bring together a diverse range of stakeholders, different thoughts, different ideas and perspectives as well, to ensure that all patients are represented and that we have the opportunity to really shape firstly healthcare policy, but also opportunities and access for prevention of cancers as well as treatment and hopefully potentially one day a cure.
I would love for the future, for especially patients with neuroendocrine cancer, having genomics where they actually will have more access to treatments. It's very limited the way it is now, but by having genomics and doing all the panels, we'll be able to see that there's future treatments that are going to give our patients a much better outcome and a better future.
Amazing. And why do you think events like today are important?
Coming to an event like this today is so important because, one thing, we're collaborating, and plus I think working together we have more chance of influencing the government and getting them to come on board, and having our voices there, it expresses everything for the patients.
I guess there's two things I'd really like to see. One is just to understand your predisposition to getting a cancer of any kind. Like, I think it should be part of like general health checkup. So to understand what to look for, like if you've got a BRCA gene, then you're looking for the breast cancers and that sort of thing. The second part is if you get diagnosed with cancer, as I did, that you can have access to your tumour's DNA. And that really allows you to, and your team, the oncologist largely, not so much you, to be able to target what your treatment plan looks like. And for me, I had an oncotype diagnostics test, and that told us that a woman with my tumour would be likely that I would see a reoccurrence if I didn't go through it with it. So at about a 6% chance of reoccurrence, that's from 200,000 women in the US. So, they could put me and say, you should have chemotherapy. And I was like, I don't want to have chemotherapy, but I would do it because the data says I should, and I would regret it if I didn't have it. So I think that should be open to everyone here in Australia. It is standard practice and care in the United States, in Britain, and in Europe. So absolutely, that's what I want to see. Equitable access to care there, because it cost me $5,000. Prices come down for everyone. I paid that. It's a privilege to be able to pay that, but it was no question. I wanted the data-informed decision around my chemotherapy, whether not to, or whether not to was the right decision, because I would have gone with not to and really didn't want to.
Great, thank you. Let's hope we can get that equity for everyone so they can access it in an affordable way.
Yeah.
So why do you think events like today are important?
It's wonderful to bring everyone together who is interested and knowledgeable in this space. Obviously, there's a huge health win for this sort of testing. Having these people in the room together, speaking the same language, getting the messaging that we need to together, so we're all speaking with one voice.
Amazing. Thanks for being with us today.
Paul, thanks for being with us. Why do you think events like the Genomic Roundtables are so important?
So Genomics has got this amazing opportunity to change the way that we treat and diagnose cancer in Australia, but it's incredibly complex and it's multi-layered. So really, to get it right, we need to ensure that we've got all the key stakeholders around the table to discuss what the barriers and drivers might be to ensure that we can deliver a really positive outcome for all of our really important patients.
Amazing, thank you. And what policy changes would you like to see to ensure increased and equitable access to genomic-led care?
So I think equitable access is the most critical thing here, and obviously while genomics is really critical, we also need to make sure that we can make those medications available. And at the moment, the HTA reviews called out a number of policy changes that need to be implemented to ensure that we can deliver on the promise of genomics. So I think that's what we really need to focus on to ensure that we can realise the potential of genomics.
Aidan, thanks so much for being with us today. What policy changes do you want to see to make sure everyone has access to genomic-led care?
I would love to see a standard of care so that everyone in the cancer care continuum is offered genomic testing at diagnosis and at recurrences when needed along their pathway, so that people don't have to rely on their oncologist to tell them about it or friends that tell them about it, that they know that there's one certain place they can go that's a reliable, trustworthy place. So I want that to be standard of care for all patients, regardless of where they live, their background and so on, what kind of cancer they have. And I also want to make sure that the access is there. There's no point having those tests and getting results if we then can't access the clinical trials or PBS-funded treatments and so on. So having that equitable access, can we change the policy somehow that there is a body of money, a pool of money that rare, less common or complex cancer patients and others can access these life-saving treatments, potentially life-saving, life-extending treatments. So having that access and that funding available as well. And I think for me, the third most important policy change I would like to see is around education and awareness, so that to make it that standard of care and have that equitable access of all the clinicians, nurses, all allied healthcare professionals are aware of the importance of genomics, are aware of what that means, of what testing when, and that there's clear guidelines and education around that, and also at university level and ongoing education.
Thank you.
That was a mouthful.
And why is genomics so important for people with rare cancers?
Well, it's very important for people with rare cancers like me, because often standard treatments don't work after a certain amount of time, or they don't really work that well initially either. And we know that frontline and treatment and the first time we recur, if we do treatment, are the most important, and getting that right. So having that genetic information can make sure we tailor the treatment, not just get the right treatments, but at the right time, so we can hopefully slow down or prevent recurrence and have the longest life possible. So really, it gives us hope when we don't have all this research and funding to know what drugs we can take, but we've got that knowledge sometimes inside our body, and there are drugs out there. We just need to know about them and get matched to them and get funding for them, please.
Thanks so much, Amanda.
No worries.
David, thanks for being with us today. What is the biggest change we need to make to ensure equitable access to genomic-led care for people with cancer?
Well, I think we're at the point now where science has actually successfully developed highly effective therapies for cancer patients, but they're being held up at the boundary between research and implementation into clinical practice. We need to work out how, as a society, we translate the most mature, the most effective of those therapies so that patients can access them as part of routine care.
Great, thank you. And tell us why genomics is so important for people with rare cancers.
Great question. That's a great question. The reason why genomics is so important for patients with rare cancers is because genomics can identify a drug target where the drug will work no matter what the label of the cancer. It means it doesn't matter if the cancer is rare anymore. What matters is its molecular profile, its molecular fingerprint. If it has that molecular fingerprint, then you can use the drug. And if you can apply genomics across all rare cancers, all of a sudden it opens up a whole world of possibilities for cancer patients.
Amazing. And why are events like today so important?
Because there's such a plurality of views, you get to bring people together, patients first and foremost, patients saying what it actually means to them to have a cancer diagnosis, to receive treatments, to experience the system. That's important for us as clinicians, as policymakers to hear, because ultimately all of us want the best thing for patients, because we know patients, we may be patients, all of us are affected by this. We all have a motivation to want to find a solution. But only by bringing us all together can we get the focused effort that will actually get the change we need. And we need it now because the drugs are available now. People are dying today for lack of access to these treatments, and they deserve to be able to access them.
Well, I think through these series of roundtables, we've learned that there's possibly multiple aspects of change that are needed to support that access. Most importantly, what stands out for me is education, education and conversation across all stakeholders that are involved. It's a complex area. How do we have the right conversations involving all stakeholders and ensure that there's education, an uplift in education across all stakeholders to really understand what we're driving towards and what change is actually possible.
And why are events like this important?
Events like this are important to bring together the range of stakeholders that are involved in this important topic of discussion. It helps surface the different aspects and perspectives of the conversation and bring those ideas together for us to think about and spark ideas from each other and build those networks that we need to help advance the topic.